7 on the early bird show.
And what a great sort of a day it's going to be. Sunset, sunrise.
So you want voice levels? Okay. Well, I'll be talking about this sort of level, and is the microphone a bit low, or should I be moving it up a wee bit? Like that, okay, okay.
It is love. Radio I.
Yeah, anyway, that's a double figure. $405.13.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. How many pickled peppers did Peter Piper pick?
Tēnā koutou, 7 o'clock on Good Morning New Zealand. Time for Morning Report with Jeff Robinson and Maggie Barry. In the programme today, South Africa releases 150 detained churchgoers as the Archbishop of Canterbury's special envoy slams the state of emergency.
Time is running out for 2 condemned Australians on Malaysia's death row.
Company receivers are encountering increasing dishonesty as they go about their duties.
And in sport, the coach of the new All Black team fears the French loss to Australia will make them even harder to beat on Saturday.
Peter Fry now with the news.
Good morning. The Archbishop of Canterbury's special...
Morning Report has a regular listening audience of something like 250,000 every day. They're a very loyal audience. They listen right through the whole program. They're people who are news junkies. They're people who will have listened to the 6:30 news the night before on television, Eyewitness News, Checkpoint, all those programs. Then they wake up to listen to Morning Report to see what's happened overnight. They're a very influential audience. From the cabinet down, members of parliament, decision makers generally throughout the country, senior civil servants, the lot. Those are the people who take a keen interest in news because it affects a lot of what they do, and so they really need to know what's going on.
And the World Cup news, all bad for some, poor Jeff, alas.
Jeff Robinson and Maggie Barry are the people the politicians listen to. Their voices are instantly recognised. Robinson has been with the program for a decade, starting when Morning Report started in 1975. Barry started in February this year. Their days start early. 5 o'clock, they're in the office, joining a team which has been working through the night.
I mean, it's the only national newspaper, if you like, that we've actually got in the whole country every day. It gives you the whole country's news as far as we can, and the international news. It's all there, neatly encapsulated in 1 hour. And the fact that we've got a very loyal listenership, I think, makes that point. People want to know what's going on right around the place, and Morning Report gives them that.
I don't think a lot of people realise quite the work that goes on behind the scenes, because the good thing about being a corporation, some say the only good thing, is that you can draw on resources from around the country, and we have reporters in Oamaru and Vicargill going up to Whangarei who also supply us with material that they work long and hard on to get the essence of it.
Good morning, New Zealand. Not only a greeting, also the name of the next 3 hours on National Radio. Jeff Robinson and Maggie Barry here.
Yes, this is Morning Report. It is Friday the 1st of April. That's our theme from the 1980s, the one I remember best as a youngster. That in honour of our 30th anniversary. Jeff is away with the flu, Sean Plunkett and Todd Nile. With top stories this morning, the lawyer for Terry Schiavo's husband says she died a peaceful death.
A full recovery for the Pope is less and less likely, according to the Vatican.
2 New Zealanders missing on the quake-ravaged island of Neas have been found.
And later, making the lending industry come clean about fees.
People were paying almost 100% interest when what was actually disclosed looked like a much lower interest rate. There were exorbitant charges.
If you're buying something on credit, you'll get more protection under law from today. Our Consumer Affairs reporter takes a closer look before 9 o'clock.
All right, it's 18 minutes past 8 now, and as we have mentioned, we're having a bit of a birthday bash today because 30 years ago today, on April Fool's Day, Morning Report first hit New Zealand's airwaves. That's been 30 years of early starts for Jeff, who for once is having an enforced line today. He's got the flu, poor old chap. But we've looked back at some of the changing voices and events of the last 3 decades, which have made Morning Report what it is.
This is the National Programme. Good morning from Radio New Zealand. This is Joe Cote. And for the next 60 minutes, this is Morning Report, the news, weather, sports and current affairs for Tuesday, the 1st of April. With me in the studio this morning...
The listeners were a bit, probably a little bit shocked at the start of the program because they've been used to listening to music, and then suddenly this program came on between 7 and 8 and sort of shattered their listening pleasure.
Coming up to 22 minutes to 8 on Morning Report, Radio New Zealand. In the studio this morning, the Prime Minister, Mr. Rowling. Welcome to Morning Report. Is it rather early for us to get you out of bed, sir?
Good morning, Joe, and every good wish for the new venture. It's not too early. I'm used to this.
And on the line, I think we have the Opposition Leader, Mr. Muldoon. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
It's true that presenting Morning Report is a strange, dimly lit, intense experience. Largely because you get up in the middle of the night, of course. It marks you for the rest of your life.
Good morning, New Zealand. Not only a greeting, also the name of the next 3 hours on National Radio. Jeff Robinson and Maggie Barry here.
National Radio's audience has always been a little resistant to change and very vocal and insistent on high standards. So I copped a bit of flack as the first woman presenter on Morning Report with what was described as a tragic Kiwi accent, and many bemoaned the fact that it was a great shame there were no decent male announcers left in the country.
Good morning, New Zealand, and a Morning Report on the 29th of April. Union officials picket train in Greymouth as a row erupts over the removal of guards from freight trains, and the Railways Department issues a threat over the picket.
A radioactive cloud from the Soviet Union moves across Finland, Sweden and Norway.
An Australian expert says the low oil prices could mean a renewed threat to the wool industry from synthetics.
And first the news with Peter Fry.
Good morning. The Soviet Union has admitted that an accident has taken place at a nuclear power station north of Kiev. And
music radio listeners want to hear.
What we've had in the past has tended to be a lot of hard rock at one side of the spectrum, one end of the spectrum, and a lot of, for example, country music at the other end of the spectrum, but not very much of the sort of material that radio stations play as part of their normal formats. So it hasn't been all the fault of the radio stations. And at the moment, there's still a dearth of suitable material. I hope that with the work of this combined committee, we'll get to a stage where we can see quite a revival in the amount of New Zealand material being produced.
Radio Hauraki's John McCready, representing independent stations, says the move will take the emotionalism out of the subject so that stations can find out what they're playing and what else is available. But he says fulfilling the quota isn't going to be easy in the short term.
The current time, yes, it will be very difficult for us to achieve the 10%, but I think that, given 6 months and a cooperation with record companies and ourselves, I think we can find out what is being produced and try and make records in New Zealand which will find, room on the various radio formats. There are some very good records produced and some very exciting pop music, but we're finding that the majority which are coming out at the moment haven't really been made with, the audiences in mind.
So it seems the next step is up to the musicians and the recording companies, although there's still the possibility of a higher quota being imposed by the government, and the Royal Commission has yet to report. For Morning Report, Jane Thompson.
Still to come this morning, we've defence policy, and we're also looking at music therapy and the weather. A few showers in Auckland, fine or becoming fine in Wellington, Christchurch or Dunedin. It's 8 o'clock.
Coming then, didn't you? Midday Report, Hewitt Humphrey here. Good afternoon, and in today's programme there's been an accident at a nuclear power plant in the Soviet Union, reaction from the United States and Britain, a railways dispute on the west coast of the South Island flares up again, and it looks like there'll be another record year in the dairy industry. In sports, the Rebel Cavaliers captain talks with difficulty about that incident. First the news from Peter Fry.
And American anti-nuclear...
The time is 7 o'clock.
Good morning. From Morning Report, Jim Sullivan and Peter Sledmere here, and we're waking today to one of the grimmest reports since these programmes began. On the DC-10 crash in the Antarctic yesterday, the facts as we have them at the moment can be put as simply as this. An Air New Zealand DC-10 passenger plane on a scenic flight to and from the Antarctic was reported overdue yesterday evening. Shortly before 10 o'clock last night, Mr. Craig Saxton for Air New Zealand made an official announcement.
Well, it's with great regret that we must now accept that the aircraft is lost. Fuel reserves were exhausted approximately half an hour ago, and the aircraft has to be down.
Mr. Craig Saxton of Air New Zealand. And at 1 minutes to 1 this morning, it was announced that a United States Hercules had sighted wreckage on the slopes of Antarctica's active volcano, Mount Erebus.
Dollars change hands yesterday. Among the shares which benefited the most,
Good morning, New Zealand. Jeff Robinson and Maggie Barry here with Morning Report on Wednesday, the 1st of March. In the programme today, the joint Australian-New Zealand-Tasman shipping service has abruptly ended.
Another shipping casualty in the Antarctic prompts a New Zealand call for new rules for human activities on and around the continent.
A report describes earlier repairs to the door of Flight 811 out of Hawaii for Auckland.
In sport, Pakistan skipper unhappy with the cricket test series as well as umpiring.
First the news, here's Hewitt Humphrey.
Good morning. A finance
Well, I'm delighted. It's a brave decision, a very brave decision.
I'm disgusted. And I feel it's a shameful decision on the part of people who are concerned for their own enjoyment.
Two views there, one white, the other black. Danny Craven and Bishop Tutu on the rugby union's decision to send a team to South Africa. Good morning from Lindsay and Jeff. Shortly we'll be talking to the chairman of the rugby union, Cess Blasey, and the Deputy Prime Minister, Geoffrey Palmer. And we'll also bring you a roundup of national and international reaction to the decision. First, the news.
Reaction to the rugby union's decision to send the All Blacks to South Africa has Good morning. Friday the 12th of July, Jeff Robinson and Hewitt Humphrey here with Morning Report. In today's programme, will the government offer a replacement ship for the Rainbow Warrior?
A warning that insurance premiums will rise dramatically next year.
The Auckland Harbour Bridge expected to be declared safe from this evening.
And John Minto and Murray Mexted debate the All Black tour.
First the news.
The Prime Minister says the police
election campaigns.
We've reaction to yesterday's record inflation figures.
They're attaching a lot of importance.
Good morning, New Zealand. Jeff Robinson and Linda Rose with you on Friday, July the 16th. Now here's the news with Peter Fry.
Good morning. Italy will keep troops in
States and North Korea have reported
Missing Hui. Inside, the paper says tutors at Aoraki Polytechnic will strike on Tuesday unless 6 staff are reinstated to their managerial positions by the chief executive. And it says Kaiapoi parents will decide within 2 weeks whether condoms should be available at the school after health professionals at a parents' meeting last night recommended that they be made available.
The return of the Electoral Reform Bill to Parliament next week leads the Otago Daily Times. Another front-page news, the Australians' decision to train in Sydney for tomorrow's Bledisloe Cup test because they claimed Dunedin's weather was too cold may have backfired. Dunedin's enjoyed warm temperatures all week, while the Aussies' flight out of Sydney yesterday was delayed by fog. There's also a front-page photo of some of the All Blacks heading out in fine weather yesterday for a harbour cruise.
The Australian Financial Review says the resignation of Treasury Deputy Secretary John Fraser to join a leading Sydney investment bank has shocked the department in the midst of preparations for the August budget. The paper says Mr Fraser's departure is the latest in a 12-year brain drain from Treasury. And the Australian newspaper says consumer confidence recorded a strong increase in early July despite a June surge in unemployed. It says the tax office has ruled that Melbourne has officially replaced Sydney as the most expensive city in which to do business.
Coming up in Morning Report, we look at the debate surrounding Auckland Zoo, allegations that animals are being mistreated. We hear from the head of paediatrics at Christchurch Hospital about the toll bacterial meningitis takes, and we look at the issue of cultural sensitivity with the principal of the Wellington College of Education.
O'clock on Morning Report with Linda Rose and Jeff Robinson. It's Friday, July the 16th, and of course it's time for the news.
Good morning, I'm Peter Fry. 3 members of the Liberal
National Radio at 7 on Thursday the 29th of April.
Morning New Zealand, this is Morning Report with Neil Billington and Diana Burns on Tuesday, January the 11th. And now with Radio New Zealand News, here's Peter Fry.
Good morning. Civil defence officials are this morning hoping to lift the 2 remaining states of emergency in parts of central Otago and the Mackenzie Basin.
Of the Wellington Challenger event, headed by New Zealand's former Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Here's the bird call, the tui. And if you've just joined us, this is Morning Report for Friday the 3rd of June. Jeff Robinson and Linda Rose with you. Now time for the news.
Good morning, I'm Peter Fry. The Labour Party says it will consider making one of its...
Kia ora tata, if you've just joined us, welcome to Morning Report on the morning of Friday, November the 19th. Neil Billington and Jeff Robinson here. 7 o'clock, time for the news.
Good morning, I'm Peter Fry.
Tata, welcome to Morning Report for the morning of Friday, June the 3rd. 7 o'clock now.
New Zealand, this is Morning Report on National Radio for Tuesday the 31st of January. Mike Hosking and Linda Rose with you at 7 o'clock.
Radio New Zealand News, I'm Hewart Humphrey, good morning. 65...
Good morning, New Zealand. Mike Hosking and Linda Rose with you on Morning Report. It's Tuesday, the 31st of January. You're listening to National Radio. It's 8 o'clock.
Radio.
Kia ora tātou, this is Morning Report with Linda Rose and Jeff Robinson on Wednesday, June the 30th. With the news, here's Robert Taylor.
And good morning. There's a call for a prison ombudsman to be appointed in the wake...
Good morning, New Zealand. If you've just joined us, you're listening to Morning Report with Linda Rose and Jeff Robinson on Monday, the 28th of June. It's time now for the news at 8.
morning, New Zealand. This is Morning Report for Thursday, March the 10th. Jeff Robinson and Linda Rose with you. Now time for the news. Good morning, New Zealand. You're listening to Morning Report on the morning of Thursday, March the 10th. Jeff Robinson and Linda Rose with you. Now time for the news.
Good morning. Tato, welcome to Morning Report for the morning of Friday, June the 3rd. 7 o'clock now, time for the news with Peter Fry.
Good morning. The government has now agreed to a form of inquiry
Kia ora tato, 7 o'clock on the morning of Friday the 8th of July. You're listening to Morning Report. It's time for news.
Good morning, I'm Peter Sledmere. The Prime Minister has expressed confidence that the government will complete
The time is 7 o'clock.
Good morning. From Morning Report, Jim Sullivan and Peter Sledmere here, and we're waking today to one of the grimmest reports since these programmes began. On the DC-10 crash in the Antarctic yesterday, the facts as we have them at the moment can be put as simply as this. An Air New Zealand DC-10 passenger plane on a scenic flight to and from the Antarctic was reported overdue yesterday evening.
Good morning, New Zealand. This is Morning Report for Thursday, March the 10th. Jeff Robinson and Linda Rose with you. Now time for the news.
Good morning, I'm Warwick Burke. Fresh from
the Shining Cuckoo to the news at 7.
Kia ora tato, Mike Hosking and Jeff Robinson with you on this Thursday, March the 16th. Coming up in Morning Report, the government's staffing proposals for schools. We'll talk to Lockwood Smith. A reporter at Motoa Gardens predicts a likely response to the Mayor's proposal to sort things out, and the Reserve Bank's economic forecast due out today. 7 o'clock with the news, Hewitt Humphrey.
Good morning.
Instead of only one as at present.
New Zealand. This is Morning Report and it's Friday, July the 8th. Jeff Robinson and Linda Rose with you. Now time for the news.
Radio New Zealand News.
And this is the little spotted kiwi. Tato, welcome to Morning Report on Monday the 25th of September. It's only 3 months to Christmas. Today, volcanic action at Mount Ruapehu. Is there more to come? Meanwhile, at the foot of the mountain, a light plane crash is being investigated. And New Zealand's international position on French nuclear testing in the light of the World Court loss. At 7 o'clock, here's Hewitt Humphrey with the news.
Good morning. The Department of Conservation is warning that the volcanic activity on Mount Ruapehu could intensify.
Of eruptive activity.
The worst volcanic eruption in New Zealand's recent history was Mount Tarawera.
Bulldogs' tries were from forward passes or on the 7th tackle, which apparently is against the rules. Grand final news is almost overshadowed by the Telegraph Mirror lead story, Super League players being excluded from the Rugby League World Cup. The Brisbane Courier Mail says Canberra officials now want to stop the squad from going to the Cup. In other news, the Australians' lead story, a leading authority has debunked claims by the federal government that it's only partially responsible for foreign debt. And the Herald Sun lead says security guards may replace transport police with powers to arrest and issue fines. Leading financial news, BHP may sell off its Vietnamese venture unless the government there renegotiates its tax changes. And in editorials, The Age previews Australia's next federal election, saying major policy differences are beginning to emerge.
The Asia-Pacific region, the chairman of the Singapore International Monetary Exchange, Elizabeth Sam, says a Bering-style financial crisis could reoccur, and the American Samoan Senate's reviewing a bill which could change the criteria for getting a matai or chiefly title.
Report on Monday, the 25th of September. Mike Hosking and Jeff Robinson here, and in this hour, Ruapehu ski fields closed, people being warned to stay away in case of larger eruptions. New legislation is coming to protect young people from cigarettes. And the second week of the Poison Professor trial in the Christchurch High Court. Here's Hewitt Humphrey with the news.
Good morning. Mount Ruapehu.
Good morning, New Zealand. This is Morning Report with Mike Hosking and Giles Beckford for Wednesday, the 31st of January. Our stories today include the Sounds Air tragedy. We'll talk to the air accidents inspector involved in the case. What future for French Polynesia after nuclear testing? And it's going to be easier to become a second-hand car dealer. But now with the news, here's Warwick Burke.
Good morning. Crash investigators continue this.
So they have to...
It's unlikely that it's multiplying in the birds.
Encouragement like that, any incentives will make a little bit of difference, but they're going to be tough on their own land anyway in terms of playing games there, and they got big payouts last time that they won, so I suppose it's just a follow-on from winning the World Cup in 1992.
Brian Waddle.
Good morning, New Zealand. Morning Report with Mike Hosking and Giles Beckford, Wednesday, the 31st of January. Coming up in the next half hour, the ANZ Bank admits misleading advertising, sweeping changes for the rules involving second-hand car dealers, and Labour accuses National of taking sides in Australia's election. With the news, here's Warwick Burke.
Good morning. The head of New Zealand News. Good morning, I'm Warwick.
Feeling good today. Morning report for Thursday, December the 19th. The guerrillas continue to hold hundreds hostage in Lima. We'll find out who they are and what they want. Also, North Health loses in court over their preferred provider scheme. We will go back to the Red Cross for you in Geneva. Jenny Shipley explains the ACC changes. We're also on board a new ferry service from Auckland to Coromandel. Radio New Zealand News now with Chris Witter.
Good morning. Explosions have been heard at the Japanese embassy.
Standing at 67.37, and the local share market will start today at about 2 points down. I forget the
number will be there on your page somewhere.
It will be there somewhere, Jeff, but I'm afraid I just can't put my finger on it. So we'll just listen for the news.
It's 8 o'clock on Thursday, December the 19th, and you're listening to Morning Report on National Radio with Mike Hosking and Jeff Robinson. In this hour, we'll find out about the guerrilla group which has taken the 490 hostages in Peru, 2,000 income support staff are on strike today. We'll talk to the PSA. Ever wonder what an opposition leader does on a holiday? We'll ask Helen Clark. Here's Chris Witter with Radio New Zealand News.
Good morning.
This is RNZ National. Ngā mihi o te rā. I'm Nicola Wright with Midday Report for Friday, July the 29th. In today's programme, a trust is ordered to pay a justly sacked former employee. Why He's Gold Mine suspends operations after a worker dies. In business news, New Zealand oil and gas battles low prices. And in sport, the Highlanders are confident of another away win.
Kia ora tātou. Welcome to Morning Report on Tuesday, December the 21st with Sean Plunkett and Jeff Robinson. Today, National warns against raising the minimum wage, the state of the economy, or at least the balance of payments, and a boost for Boris in the Russian elections. First Radio New Zealand News with Warwick Beck.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Morning Report. Jeff Robinson and Sean Plunkett with you on Tuesday, April the 11th. This day, Clark takes the sword to knights and dames, emotional angry testimony at the Gisborne smear inquiry, and why farmers fear the tariff freeze. First Radio New Zealand News, here's Warwick Burke.
Good morning. The opposition parties say the
Kia ora tātou. This is Morning Report on Thursday, March the 23rd with Sean Plunkett and Jeff Robinson. Today, the government ready to set tough sentencing guidelines for judges. Did Jim Anderton get the price of petrol down? And the Pope gives Palestinians a boost. First Radio New Zealand News, here's Warwick Beck.
Good morning.
That's business for now. Back at 7:35 after sports. Here's the Skylark.
This is Morning Report. Jeff Robinson and Sean Plunkett with you on Wednesday, November the 3rd. This day, Bunkle bows out of Wellington Central. Bye-bye Britomart, let's build a bus stop. And Byron is benched while Justin is back for the Wooden Spoon final. First Radio New Zealand News with Hewitt Humphrey.
Good morning. And that's the shore plover in the business news.
Kia ora tātou. Morning Report on Tuesday, June the 16th with Sean Plunkett and Jeff Robinson. Well, today, 4 on the run from Paremoreimo, Max Bradford's electricity reforms under pressure, the Operation Tam arrest and the AMP float. First Radio New Zealand News with Chris Witter.
Good morning. 4 prisoners described by police as extremely dangerous are on the run from Auckland Prison at Paremoreimo this morning, and the police say the breakout was well planned. Darren Crowley, Arthur Taylor, Matthew Thompson and Graham Burton escaped from the media.
This is Morning Report with Sean Plunkett and Eva Radic for Wednesday the 16th of December. Today, time to face up to the hypocrisy of our abortion laws. Do you want the SIS authorised to break into your home? And Clinton heads home to face more troubles over impeachment. Radio New Zealand News, here's Hewitt Humphrey.
Good morning. The abortion
Good morning, this is Morning Report with Jeff Robinson and Sean Plunkett for Tuesday the 3rd of February. This day, crisis, what crisis? Asian markets bounce back. Is government drought relief any more than a drop in the ocean? And Healthcare Otago releases the Gareth Smither report. First news with Hewitt Humphrey.
Good morning.
Asian future then, Francis Kennedy in Rome. So the numbers. The TWI at the moment is at 68.41. New Zealand stocks traded in New York. Fletcher Building 459, Energy 423, Forest 227, Paper 288, Telecom 750, Transrail 809. The Dow Jones is at 6887. It's up 37 points at the moment.
This is Morning Report with Jeff Robinson and Eva Radic on National Radio. Coming up, praise for police who shot an armed woman and the euthanasia debate gathers heat across the Tasman. Radio New Zealand News, here's Warwick Burke.
Good morning. Auckland's Assistant Police Commissioner says lessons have been learned from an armed hostage situation in an Avondale dairy last year. The findings of a Police Complaints Authority inquiry vindicates the officer who shot and injured the woman who held the dairy owner at knife.
You're listening to Morning Report on Wednesday the 5th of February. In this hour we'll talk to the President of New Zealand First about the Aotearoa television row and hear about the squeeze on the local car assembly industry. But we'll start with Radio New Zealand News from Hewitt Humphrey.
Good morning. Aotearoa television...
Good morning and welcome to Morning Report with Sean Plunkett and Eva Radic for Thursday the 8th of January. Today, a protest looms over abuse of customary fishing rights and hospital admissions up despite free healthcare for littlies. With the news now, Hewitt Humphrey.
Good morning.
That's the Kia. I'll be back around 7:35 after sports to update it all for you.
Kia ora tātou, welcome to Morning Report on Tuesday, May 19th with Sean Plunkett and Jeff Robinson. Today, the writing on the wall for President Suharto, the arbitrator's view of the police pay claim, and the US Justice Department takes Microsoft to court. First, Radio New Zealand News, here's Warwick Burke.
Good morning.
Good morning, welcome to Morning Report with Jeff Robinson and Sean Plunkett. It's Monday the 17th of May. This day a New Zealander is abducted in Chechnya, Fiji's strongman faces defeat at the polls, and welfare officials probe Bert Potter's return to Centrepoint. First, Radio New Zealand News with Warwick Burke.
Good morning.
Kia ora tātou, welcome to Morning Report on Tuesday, December the 25th. Kia ora tātou, this is Jeff Robinson with a special early edition of Morning Report today because there has been a terrible tragedy in the United States. We'll be bringing you extensive coverage of that through the course of the morning. I'll begin with the National Radio News. There have been unprecedented attacks with 4 planes hijacked and 3 of them deliberately crashed into New York's World Trade Center and the Pentagon. Loss of life is expected to be catastrophic from a subsequent collapse of the 2 towers of the center where many thousands of people work. There are believed to be casualties at the Pentagon as well, the headquarters of the American military, where the building is on fire. All major government buildings have been evacuated.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Report with Mike Hosking and Eva Radic on National Radio. Today, PNG in turmoil. The mercenary contract is off. With Radio New Zealand News, here's Hewitt Humphrey.
Good morning.
I remember standing in a supermarket line and I picked up the Evening Post, and on the editorial pages were letters from people who lived in leafy and refined areas of Wellington like Kandala, and they were talking about their indignation and despair that the end of the world had come to national radio. It would never be the same again. And there was this headlines like nasal whining not welcome.
Today, the NATO attack on Yugoslavia is underway. Explosions have been reported from Kosovo.
Detonations, but I am hearing automatic gunfire now in the distance. It does appear that something is starting. That's 3 explosions. The first one a very heavy explosion. We're not seeing any points of impact, nor are we hearing...
Timorese capital Dili has descended into chaos with running street battles between Jakarta-backed militia groups and those who want independence. With counting underway in the UN-sponsored referendum, some of the worst...
by militias running at us, screaming, very aggressive, wielding machetes. It was an extremely frightening moment. It was very hard to know where to run. They were clearly going for us. I was toppled over and had militiamen basically start beating me from above. I mean, in fact, I didn't even see it. I was almost...
This monkey man, like the one in Delhi, is a scratcher. He scratches the faces, he scratches arms, he chooses his victims. The police are playing it down, but those who lived through the monkey man trauma know it's real.
The worst terrorist attacks on the United States mainland in modern history have struck at the heart of New York and Washington and plunged the country into chaos and panic. The United States is really
right now is a massive rescue effort that's going on right now. We're trying to evacuate thousands and thousands of people. We have as many of our police and fire personnel as we have down in the southern part.
You haven't asked the question, had you been drinking, Mr. Peters?
Well, of course I had a drink, right? But the real point is here...
Could you tell us how many?
Sean, I'm not going to indulge your prurient little prying mind. Given who you are and what you are and what I know about you, you've got an awful cheek to be asking me these questions.
I'm Don Brash, leader of the National Party. Jeff Robinson, over the whole period of that 30 years, and Sean Plunkett for the last umpteen years, have made this a program which everybody with a strong interest in current affairs is obliged to listen to.
I want to pay a tribute on the 30-year occasion to Jeff Robinson, who has just gone on and on and on with the most fantastic high-quality interviewing, always pleasant, always reasonable, but firm. It's a time to acknowledge incredible contribution to public service, both by Morning Report as a whole and by the individuals who've made it happen week in, week out, year in, year out.
The Prime Minister Helen Clark ending that
troops to Afghanistan is in New Zealand's best interests. The Prime Minister John Key says 70 of the elite SAS soldiers will be sent to the war-torn country in 3 rotations over the next year and a half. At the same time, he's scaling back the provincial reconstruction team that's helping Afghan people rebuild its communities. Rowan Quinn reports.
Maranga mai, no mai, haere mai. This is Morning Report. I'm Guyan Espiner. It's Wednesday, April the 2nd.
And I'm Susie Ferguson. A quick check first on your weather. It's cloudy and foggy across much of the country this morning, but fine almost everywhere later today. We've got the details coming up shortly.
Today on Radio New Zealand National.
Claimants don't want to take up that offer when they can recover 100% of repair costs through the tribunal or in the courts.
4 years after the government promised relief to the country's 89,000 leaky homeowners, fewer than 100 homes have been fixed under its home repair scheme.
A pay-as-you-go power company stands accused of profiteering from poverty.
I've been told the same thing every time I phone, that it's $110 for a 12-month statement.
Beneficiaries are charged for the written statements they need to claim additional benefit payments, but they can't afford to pay.
Also, West African countries shut their borders in a bid to keep the Ebola virus out.
Senegal announced yesterday that it was closing its southern border with Guinea. Today we've heard reports that Morocco is stepping up its health screening in some of its airports.
So far, 87 people have died in the outbreak.
Radio New Zealand News, I'm Nicola Wright. A government scheme set up to help leaky homeowners has resulted in repairs to fewer than 100 homes.
Welcome to Morning Report Top Stories, a selection of news from Radio New Zealand National's morning news programme.
Well, US President Joe Biden has arrived in Uvalde, the Texas town where an 18-year-old gunman killed 19 students and 2 teachers last week. It could be a defining moment for the president at a time when many Americans are desperate for an end to mass shootings and gun violence. Uvalde is still in shock after the tragic school shooting, and the US Justice Department has now confirmed it will investigate the slow police response. There was a 40-minute gap from the police unit's arrival at Robb Elementary School to the moment they decided to storm the classroom where the gunman had barricaded himself. Let's get the latest now from our US correspondent, Kate.
Welcome to Morning Report Top Stories, a selection of news from RNZ's morning news programme. Well, Aucklanders are being urged to steer clear of the beach this Waitangi weekend. Auckland Council says major floods have contaminated the waters and coated the beaches in debris, making it unsafe to swim. The head of planning Healthy Waters, Nick Weiger, is with us now. Hi, Nick.
0.6 Australian, 47.9 British pence, 55.9 euro cents, 90.2 yen and 4.38 yuan. Brent crude oil on the rise, up $1.70, that's about 2%, at $80.25 US a barrel. And gold is down $7 at $2,022 US dollars an ounce. Other business news this morning, Genesis Energy has got one of its big units at Huntly back up and running after being out of action for nearly 7 months. The gas-fired number 5 unit is back online after repairs to a broken circuit breaker required parts from overseas. But the work has been completed 4 months ahead of schedule, and the unit is ready to provide power for up to 400,000 houses if and when needed. And given the state of hydro lakes at the moment, that might be sooner rather than later. The overall cost for the outage around $25 million after insurance payments. And the cancer diagnostics company Pacific Edge has reported a 16% drop in number of tests processed at its laboratories towards the end of December. It has cut its sales team and other costs to manage resources at the moment. Back around 8:30.
The Chatham Petrol. RNZ National.
Ngata Maria, good morning New Zealand. You're listening to Morning Report on RNZ National. Ko Corandan Tene.
Ko Ingrid Hipkiss aho. It is Aratu, Tuesday, January the 23rd. Our top stories this morning. The Commerce Commission will probe claims that foodstuffs and Woolworths have engaged in misleading pricing.
But a campaigner against supermarket duopolies says investigating complaints won't fix a broken market.
Iwi leaders and politicians are converging on Rātana, describing it as a chance to continue conversations which were started at the Kingitanga's National Hui.
Families are preparing to dig deeper into household budgets to pay for school uniforms.
We'll get some tips for dealing with the hot weather around the Motu.
And the rain out there, it eases in the South Island, but increases across much of the North Island.
RNZ News at 7 o'clock. Atamarie. Good morning. I'm Karen McCarthy. The consumer watchdog is to investigate whether the supermarket duopoly is complying with the Fair Trading Act. The Commerce Commission is looking into Woolworths, which operates Countdown, Fresh Choice and Super Value, and Foodstuffs, which operates New World, Pack and Save and Foursquare. Chris Sessford reports.
The Commerce Commission says the focus will be to consider whether certain pricing and promotional practices of the supermarkets comply with the Fair Trading Act. It says the investigations are in the early stages and it cannot comment further. Both Foodstuffs and Woolworths say they will comply fully. Last August, the advocacy body Consumer New Zealand complained to the Commission, asking it to investigate the supermarket chains for potential breaches of the Act.
Kingi Tuheitia will attend the celebrations in